Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I am loving today's show, Heath. We got to go. I am going to SNL this. We got a great show for you tonight.
I was going to say, I have absolutely no idea like what you mean. I'm super excited for the show as well.
Yeah, well, we got an injury. We got our sports injury analyst, Marty Jaramillo, joining us later. We're going to ask him about three top 15 players: Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr, Gibbs, Puka, Nacua, and more. Get some injury updates and what we can expect, maybe in terms of re-injury or whatnot. I have some very important announcements to make, and we have, of all the draft-a-thon items, maybe the most appealing one: a chance to draft with 11 industry experts. Not me, Dave, Jamie, Heath, and 8 others like the footballers, Jake Seeley, Nando DeFino, Scott Fish. A chance to draft with all of them, but it's tomorrow. So there's some urgency there. So I will tell you about that a little bit later, but everything is available at tinyurl.com/draftathon2024. And I'm guessing this one's going to be in the auction house section of it. So again, I'll tell you about that later. But first, please, this might be your last chance, and I don't know what to do. I've tried so hard to coordinate 12 different FFT open leagues. I've got 2 people who have not accepted their invite and who have ignored all of my emails. It is time to get in your league. Bill Wall in the John Breach League. Brendan Gobert in the Frank Stamfel League. If you are respond to me. I keep emailing you. If you aren't seeing my emails, you can send an email to fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. That is the letter I. I need you to join these leagues, guys. Please, we got to get these drafts started. Again, Bill Wall, Brendan Gobert, Brendan in the Frank League, Bill in the John League. I know your email addresses, so if anybody tries to scam me, I'll be able to verify who it is. I need you to reach out to me. Okay, Heath, FFT Open is underway. I am in round 6 already in my league. How about you?
I am in round 2. We had a little bit of a delay. That was my fault because I was not sending emails to people when they were on the clock. I paused the draft. I fixed that. I am 5 picks away. So I'm sure everybody who's in my division is like right here in the YouTube chat right now. If you guys want to go ahead and make 4 picks, then I will make my 2-3 turn picks on air in the FFT Open. But we just had Derrick Henry go 19th overall.
Ooh.
A team named Danny Dimes took Puka right before that.
Oh, hey.
Another team named You May Kiss McBride.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry went 33rd over in my league to a team named Dan with 3 exclamation points. And Jamie's here. Jamie's just started his draft this morning. Christian McCaffrey was the first pick. But I want to look at a few trends. I am seeing in the FFT Open, 3 running backs with the first 5 picks is kind of in vogue right now, Jamie. Maybe some jitter. This is a PPR league, and it's only 2 receivers, so I will say that. But maybe some jitters with the early receivers, with the holdouts and the injuries and all that.
3 running backs in the first 5 picks should be what's happening. I mean, when you talk about, like you said, where these guys are right now. So we may see 3 in the first 4 picks pretty soon. If Lamb continues to hold out and falls. So. I've certainly made the adjustment, and I know I was the kind of take receiver, 2 through 6, right? 2 through 6 after McCaffrey, and it just makes more sense to take those 2 running backs, especially when you start to bump up the value of some of the receivers at the back end of round 2.
We had 3 running backs taken in the first 3 picks in my FFT Open division, and I did, like we've been saying, I think for a week now, Adam, maybe both of us, like. Next week, I'm going to drop CeeDee Lamb and Ja'Marr Chase a little bit. It was today for me. Not a lot. Lamb's now my wide receiver 2. I finally moved him behind Tyreek, probably caught up to everyone else. And Ja'Marr Chase is down to wide receiver 6 and pick 8.
Okay. So behind A.J. Brown?
Yeah. No.
Wait. Sorry. Do I have that wrong? All right. Wide receiver 6. Okay. So it's for
5.
Tyreek.
6.
Okay.
No, 6. So it's pick 9. You're right. Behind A.J. Brown.
I
had A.J. Brown in that same tier just at the end of it. Then I moved Jefferson behind him, and now I've moved Chase behind him.
Okay. Fair enough. And by the way, that means that we're not too concerned about Tyreek Hill's hand injury, which seems to be very minor. Okay, what else? I want to track Rashee Rice and Malik Neighbors in several of the FFT Open divisions and recent NFC ADP and an ESPN PPR mock draft that came out with some of their experts. Malik Neighbors in my division went 24th, and Rashee Rice went 37th. They went back-to-back in Dan Schneier's division in round 4, so they were like around 40th overall. So far, 33 picks in the Will Brinson division, no Rashee Rice or Malik Neighbors. In Thomas Schaefer's division, they're at the 43rd pick right now. Neighbors just went 41st, and Rashee Rice has not been picked yet. In ESPN's PPR mock draft 10-team, Neighbors went 25th, and Rashee Rice went 71st. Holy moly. And NFC drafts over the last 3 days, 30 drafts. Neighbors is wide receiver 19. Rashee Rice is wide receiver 25. So I wish I could tell you where to expect these guys to go, but I have no
idea.
Yeah. When's the earliest you would take Neighbors or Rice?
Neighbors would be the end of round 3. Rice would be middle of round 4.
I've got Rice at the end of round 3 and Neighbors in round 6.
Right. Okay. And then I just want to mention in the ESPN mock draft, Adam Schefter took Anthony Richardson as QB1. I'm pretty sure it's a 4-point league. But how about that? He went 1 pick ahead of Jalen Hurts, went 33rd overall. Are you guys at all bothered by this? It is circulated now that Anthony Richardson had a pretty bad practice and his receivers weren't getting open. Josh Downs not playing. And the Bengals cornerbacks were like, what is happening here? This guy, he doesn't see his receivers. He's just going to run all the time. Like, are you concerned at all about the preseason and training camp for Anthony Richardson?
No. And look, I don't mind that he runs. Like, that's not a bad thing. I forget. I think it was Ryan Kelly maybe was interviewed in The Athletic about this. And he said, we didn't spend any time game planning for them. So, that's part of it. I think, anytime you just kind of walk out on the field, the defense should have an advantage, over the offense more times than not. It's what you see in the early part of most training camps. Anyway, it's not encouraging. Like you're watching Aaron Rodgers carve up the Giants. I don't know what's there to say about that, but you'd much rather see him, have a productive practice and a productive scrimmage or whatever the case may be. But I'm not worried about it. No.
I think the Bengals are just salty. Like they're a trash talking team on a mission this year.
Are they talking trash about the Chiefs again or something?
I know. I haven't heard any of that.
Oh, okay.
Ja'Marr Chase flat out refuses to talk about the Chiefs. Just doesn't even mention them.
So listen, guys, it's time to sign up for BetMGM. All right, season's almost here. If you haven't signed up yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. And you're going to receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. I do want to tell you all about the Draftathon stuff, the opportunity to be in the Draftathon League, which is amazing. Jamie's going to tell you about that in a little bit. First, I want to go through some news and notes here. Let's talk about Bo Nix. Congratulations, Bo Nix. First Denver quarterback since John Elway to start week 1 as a rookie. And I probably could have said that better. His air yards per pass attempt in the preseason has been 6.1 yards. That would have ranked last in the NFL last year. Russell Wilson was 25th. I think it was like 7.5 last year for the Broncos. But here were the bottom 5 in intended air yards per pass attempt last year. It's not like you can't have a good offense with low ADOTs. Joe Burrow / Jake Browning, they were the 2 lowest last year. Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. But you had the Bengals, Chiefs, and Lions had the lowest intended air yards per pass attempt. But Heath, we're going to talk about best and worst values on today's show. You had Courtland Sutton as one of your best values. Do you worry at all about the fit of Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton?
I don't think it's quite as ideal as Russell Wilson, but it's probably more ideal than Russell Wilson trying to run Sean Payton's offense. So I still think that Sutton just seems to be so clearly the number 1 wide receiver, and the 2 guys who are smallish guys who might seem to be better fits with Bo Nix. Sean Payton doesn't seem to want to play anyway. Like, he just wants to play big wide receivers and throw the ball 6 yards downfield. I will say, like, to the Bo Nix point, the last 3 seasons of Drew Brees' career, 7-1, 6-4, and 6-1 in terms of intended air yards per pass attempt. So this sounds like Bo Nix is doing exactly what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's very low, those ADOTs or air yards per pass attempt that Heath just mentioned, especially the last 2 for Drew Brees. Real quick, Bo Nix or Gardner Minshew in a 2
Nix, because there's more certainty of him keeping the job all year.
Nix. And he probably has a little more rushing upside.
Knicks or Celtics? Deshaun Watson has arm soreness. Not ideal, but it happens.
Getting worried, DeShazer?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a sleeper for me, but he's obviously, I've never drafted him in a 1 QB league, but I started out worried. It's not great, but he might play this weekend. So this might just be nothing. He's not the first quarterback to have arm soreness in training camp.
I wonder if we get Kevin Stefanski saying, we really thought that he'd be able to play through this, but he didn't.
I would be shocked if why would you play him?
Oh, I feel like they have to. I feel like there's a lot to gain there he just needs the reps, I feel.
I mean, to go out there and do 1 drive and fall on his shoulder or something, why would you do that?
But as someone who has drafted Amari Cooper in the FFT Open in the 5th round, it is comforting. Like, I don't think Jameis Winston is a great quarterback, but in terms of backup quarterbacks, you could do a lot worse than Jameis Winston.
Yes, it's better than the non-Joe Flacco backups that they had last year. So that's certainly a comfort. I think the thing, I was in a draft last night, was keeper draft, where people were taking 2 quarterbacks very early. So I felt lucky to get Jaden Daniels, and the way the keeper rounds work, somebody got Caleb Williams and Deshaun Watson as their quarterbacks. And I was like, I don't love that pairing.
I'm sorry, who was it? Jaden Daniels and Deshaun Watson?
I had Jaden Daniels. I did not draft a backup. Somebody took Caleb Williams and Deshaun Watson as their pairing, and I don't love that duo.
Right. In case you missed it, my case for Watson, he averaged a little bit more than 20 points per game in his 5 healthy games last year. And that's good enough to be a top 12 quarterback, borderline top 12. And that was with him being one of the worst passers in football. Anyway, Jalen Waddle is back at practice. Jalen Warren's hamstring injury is not long-term. Hope he could be back for week 1. But yeah, and just to reiterate, Tyreek Hill, very minor hand injury. We're not concerned. Joe Mixon looks to be close to 100%, according to Jonathan Alexander of the Houston Chronicle. Cleveland running back Pierre Strong left with a rib injury. He was taken to the hospital, but it doesn't seem like that's a serious injury. The San Francisco running backs, they're pretty much all back at practice, except for Christian McCaffrey. And this is a big week for the Niners. McCaffrey still out. Ayuk and Trent Williams, they're working hard to get deals done with those guys. How about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Thoughts out to him. Hopefully he's doing okay. He's dealing with PTSD for an incident that happened a while ago. So, mentally, we hope everything's okay with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Detroit offensive tackle Penei Sewell, one of the best in the game. He left practice with an ankle injury. I haven't seen anything on that. Dallas Goedert has an oblique injury. Haven't seen anything on that. Philadelphia released CJ Uzomah. I know a lot of you wanted to hear Dave do Uzomah. Maybe he'll do it next time. Brock Bowers still out.
Never again.
Foot injury. I love it. A.J. Dillon, Packers backup running backs. A.J. Dillon dealing with a stinger that he suffered in 2023. And Marshawn Lloyd is still out with a hamstring injury. Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, who covers the Packers, he predicted that Romeo Doubs will get the most red zone targets for the Packers. Dallas signed Linval Joseph, a defensive tackle. And as Jamie alluded to earlier, Aaron Rodgers whooped the Giants. Jamie, start of the week in week 1, Sam Darnold or Jordan Addison? Who are you going with?
Neither, but certainly interesting. But I had a fun Vikings build in best ball draft last night.
Oh yeah,
all the Vikings.
All right, we're gonna take a break here. When we come back, we'll tell you about this amazing opportunity to join a league with fantasy experts. And we'll get into the best and worst values in fantasy drafts based on different ADPs, different websites. We'll be right back on FFT. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today. Jamie, tell us about the Draftathon League. I know it's short notice, but what an opportunity this is.
It is short notice. We have a draft tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. It is with myself, Dave, Heath, and what is that? 9 other experts. 8 other
Yeah.
analysts. And we have one spot open to join this league. So it is with some of the best fantasy analysts in the business, and that is not a joke. I don't want to say their names because I have not gotten permission to make that public, but it is from.
Oh, I already did.
Huh?
I already did.
Oh.
Well, I mean, look, you're going to talk about the league and their draft results with all their names. Didn't I say some of their names? I said some of their names earlier today.
Okay, well, you'll get sued. Some of the bigger publications that you've certainly listened to and read, and their biggest personalities are taking part in this league. They've been on our Draftathon programming before throughout the course of the years. One of them is a professional wrestler.
Didn't see him.
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I will say one name because it's fine. Nando's part of this also. So it's very cool, and obviously the donation goes to a great cause in St. Jude, and so you'll see us tweeting it, Xing it, Twixing it, whatever we call it now, sending out the link. So if you'd like to take part in it and make a donation, we would appreciate it.
Okay, so what you're going to do is go to tinyurl.com/draftathon 2024 and then scroll down a bit and go to the auction house section. It says view auction house. And then you're going to see, there it is. It just posted. Also, there are private Zoom calls with me, Dave, Jamie, and Heath. And there are 6 spots in the podcast league. Monday night, we're drafting 6 spots there that you can bid on as well. But we want you, and then you can also bid on the tennis match. We want you to absolutely crush it with this Draftathon League. I am not even allowed in this league. It's so exclusive. The best of the best. No time for me. Get in there, and hopefully I won't get sued. All right, let's talk about best and worst values. And Heath, your best values, I'm assuming you were using CBS ADP.
Of course I was using CBS ADP.
Okay, I try to cross-check it with some of the more recent ADP in NFC drafts, but what are some of your best values here?
Yeah, and so I like the very first one is you really need to do that because Rashee Rice ADP is climbing slowly on CBS, but what you'll find in normal people drafts is that people are still going to look at that and try to wait a little bit longer than I think they should for Rice. He's now up to 77th overall. I looked at the last week of NFC drafts. I believe he is around 45th. I still think that's a really good value in 45th. Javonte Williams is 87th overall. I'm not sure if he's climbing or not. Chris Godwin, 85th overall. And Courtland Sutton, like, even if he's a bad fit for Bo Nix, 119th overall at the end of round 10.
I'll tell you about Rashee Rice and his ADP. I did it just from, I think, Sunday to Wednesday or Monday to Wednesday, 30 drafts. Just wanted to see because he had a really good, encouraging preseason game. So now he's up to wide receiver 25, as I mentioned earlier, 43rd overall in NFC. NFC is super wide receiver heavy, which is why I'm sort of trying to focus on where they are among the position, because this is like so wide receiver heavy. Running backs fall a lot. But Rashee Rice, it's Davante Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs, Rashee Rice, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins, Zay Flowers. Right in that mix.
Only one I would take ahead of him still is T. Higgins.
I think T. Higgins is the only one of that group that I have ahead of him. And I'm not sure that I still have T. Higgins ahead of him. I don't. I would take none of those guys ahead of him.
Okay. Additionally, if you said to me, hey, what is the best value at any position in any round in fantasy drafts this year? I'm saying round 5 wide receivers. What would you guys say?
I mean, you've said that quite a bit. Based on ADP, it certainly is extremely valuable. But I just don't see that in many drafts I do.
I see it all the time. I mean, in the FFT Open, it just happened. Let me tell you who went in round 5 of my FFT Open League. It was crazy. It was George Pickens, Michael Pittman, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Tank Dell. Those are the first 7 picks. And then we had Stephon Diggs.
Right. Like, and somebody said it in the chat. Jamie has been best ball brained. So like that is the response. Anytime I talk about any wide receivers and their ADP on Twitter, immediately I get a bunch of people saying they're never available that late. And they're never available that late on NFC or in best ball drafts. That is true. You have to know your draft.
Yeah, but ADP has round 5 as great value to me. Do you guys disagree with that? I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't
know for sure. We agree with that.
Okay. Heath also all right, Javonte Williams. Let me see where he is among running backs right now. Javonte is running back 25. All right, so he's going after Jones, Swift, Stevenson, Montgomery, Jones, Swift, Najee, Jahmyr White, Javonte Williams ahead of Mostert, Pollard, Chase Brown, Spears, Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Warren, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary.
So I think all the guys you said he's ahead of, I like him ahead of. I definitely like him more than Aaron Jones, who he's going by. I like him better than Jahmyr White. I like him better than Ramondre Stevenson. I think there's a chance that he catches 50 to 60 passes, and I think he's going to have around 220 rush attempts.
How do you feel about Javonte, Jamie? You think that this is right, that he deserves to be top 25 wide receiver or running back? Pardon me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've certainly come around on him. He's 24th for me, so this is the range I would take him in. But the guys that Heath has listed, that's the blob that I hate. So it's if you have an inkling that he's better than those guys and has the chance to outperform them, then you certainly should take them ahead of White and Stevenson and Najee and Jones. Like for me, I have those other guys ahead of him just because I am still concerned that the Broncos could be terrible. I mean, I know they've had a couple good preseason performances, but it could be like the Steelers from last year. They're trying things that are working, and once teams start to game plan for Bo Nix and they're trailing, how much is Javonte's value going to be at a very high level, certainly from a touchdown standpoint? I think he's going to catch passes probably more so than we expect. Like Heath has talked about a lot. He's certainly been a Javonte supporter and stuck with him. But I do think we'll see, Jaleel McLaughlin. And I do think at some point by the middle to the end of the season, we could see a little bit too much of Audric Estime. So that's my slight, drawback with, putting Javonte ahead of that group, but he belongs in that group for sure.
I will say, like, just what Jamie said, looking at my rankings, and I've got Javonte at 18, and then there's 4 guys after him. And it is definitely they could be terrible section of the running backs, because Javonte Williams, Tony Pollard, Jahmyr White, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, like those 5 offenses might be the bottom 5 offenses in the NFL this year, except Devin Singletary's at 30, and that's probably the bottom offense.
I think the one thing, like with this group, and again, this is why tiers matter. If you feel like you need to, get a second running back, or when you feel like you need to get a second running back, if you don't want to dip your toe into the Bengals guys, Spears and/or Warren, depending on when he's healthy, Singletary, that group of guys, which is the group that comes after these guys, Jonathan Brooks, etc. Then you just got to figure out which one you like the best, and at what point you want to just kind of settle for them, because I think that's kind of what you should be doing as opposed to reaching for them or targeting them.
Yeah.
So like we've talked about a lot the last couple of weeks, if you go hero RB or zero RB, these are the type of guys you're getting if you want to get, somewhat of a, player that's going to get a lot of work. It's just a matter of like, where's the upside? So like you can certainly argue again, Javonte's upside versus these other guys. And I think I know I did the eliminator draft where it was the first time I took Javonte Williams. So when was that, Heath? Like May or June?
Yeah.
That was the first time I took Javonte. I think I've only taken him 3 or 4 times. And then I did a draft last night where, again, crazy keeper stuff. So factor that in, but it was a hero RB build, and Javonte is my number 2 running back. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I'm doing a hero RB build as we speak in the FFT Open, and I'm in the 6th round, 7th round now. I only have Travis Etienne, and there's Najee, Jahmyr White, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, Tajay Spears, the Bengals running backs. They're all still available. I'll probably end up with 2 of them in the next 3 or 4 rounds to go with Etienne, and hopefully I'm just kind of loaded everywhere else. Hopefully. All right, some more values here. Well, Jamie, do you want to give any, or do you want to just react to mine and Heath?
I mean, I don't have their exact ADP. I could tell you, the range they're going in.
Yeah, who have you been finding? I know you read the ADP all the time. So who stands out to you
In terms of early or late?
Whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I mean, there's so many good players that I think are going after pick 100 overall still. This is CBS ADP. Like Tyjae Spears hasn't moved. I don't understand that at all. From where he is, he's like 102. Jamison Williams, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Khalil Shakir. These are guys I take a lot of just because they're so cheap. Rico Dowdle, I'm shocked as he's moving, but he's not moving high enough in my opinion. He's now past Ezekiel Elliott, which is interesting, and we'll see how far he goes. Chuba Hubbard, another one. Like. Can you really make a strong argument for Jerome Ford being significantly ahead of Chuba Hubbard? And I know it's not significant, but it feels like that's the draft value. They're very similar to me in terms of what their potential outcomes could be. They could be the best running backs on their team for the entire season. And clearly you'd rather have the Browns running back than the Panthers running back. I get that. But they're both potential stopgap options that could be replaced by October. And Hubbard goes much later, and he was almost as productive in the second half of the season as Jerome Ford was. So Hubbard is an easy one to take. Jake Ferguson is still a very good value. I know he's climbing a lot. He's in the 80s now, but he's still somebody that you can settle for and be good there. Jaden Daniels is going after pick 100 overall. For me, he's top 10 quarterback, so love that.
Yeah, with Ferguson, I always have a tough internal decision there with Ferguson, right? Because let's say you value the top 8 tight ends, kind of separately from everyone else. So that would end with that trio of Kittle, Pitts, Ingram, and you don't get one of them. And they're usually gone by round 6. By round 5, you have the top 5 are gone, and then in round 6, by the end of round 6, you usually have the next 3 gone, something like that. When do you take Ferguson? Is round 7 too early for him? Or, is round 8 the right time for Jake Ferguson? What do you guys think?
I think there should really be a top 9. Like, I really think we should include Ferguson in this group just because, A, you know what you're getting. And while there may not be as much upside, there's a reason why he's last. There's still the potential of that 3 touchdown game. Like he's shown you in his resume that there's the not league winning upside there, but there's week to week winning upside. And so second on team in targets, that's locked in. I don't know. To me, there should be a top 9 as opposed to a top 8 at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you like his last 11 games, including that playoff game, 13.8 PPR fantasy points per game. Like that's not that much different than what we're expecting from the Big Four. Now it's influenced by the 3 touchdown game, but it's also influenced by the fact that he had a terrible touchdown rate in the second half of the year besides that 3 touchdown game. So when CeeDee Lamb took off, that offense went hyper concentrated on 2 guys, and Ferguson was just about as good as anybody.
Yeah, and we shouldn't hold that 3 touchdown game against them. I know what happened in the playoffs, but a couple of years ago, remember Travis Kelce was kind of coming off a crummy year, but he averaged almost 100 yards per game in the playoffs, and he showed what he was capable of. By the way, it's sort of the same thing last year. Playoff games count too. You should not just discount them. All right. So you're comfortable with Jake Ferguson in the 7th round?
Yeah.
It's not great. Yeah, it would be better.
I guess he's climbing a little too high. Yeah.
But he's still behind Njoku. He's not even tight end 9. So keep that in mind. All right. What else we got here? All right. So I'll give you some of my best values, and you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. What is this? Josh Allen is QB4. Someone's calling Heath out for ranking Josh Allen as QB4.
Yeah.
Jackson. Yeah. All right. I like it. All right. Some values I thought were great. This is based on NFC ADP in the last 3 days, 30 drafts. And I'm just kind of looking at where these guys rank more or less among their position. Brock Purdy, Tua, and Caleb Williams, quarterbacks 12 through 14. They're all going 114th to 116th. So these are round 10 picks. But if you fallback options to get 2 of these guys, or maybe even just one, Purdy, Tua, Caleb Williams, great values to me. Thumbs up.
You'd rather have those 3 or Daniels or Williams?
Wait, say that again. Williams
was one of them.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Those 3 or Daniels.
I'd actually rather have Williams than Daniels in a 6-point league, Daniels in a 4-point. But no, I'm not saying that Daniels is bad value. I'm just saying if you miss out on him, this is a perfectly good.
He's going ahead of those guys?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
In CBS ADP, Daniels and Williams are tied at pick 107. So, and Tua's ahead of them. Goff's ahead of them. Purdy's 2 rounds ahead of them.
Yeah.
So I think like, we're going to talk about my worst values, and it's the same drum that I've been banging for months, but no one's listening to me. Jordan Love's ADP has gone up 5 spots, and he's now at pick 59. So if I have a choice between pick 115 for Tua or Purdy or Caleb Williams, or pick 59 for Jordan Love, yes, I think that's a great value for those guys.
All right. In NFC ADP, James Cook is RB 14. He's 43rd overall, which I don't expect, but you might get James Cook mid to late 3rd round. In CBS ADP, James Cook going 22nd overall.
And climbing.
Yeah. So, right. He's up.
Projections like RB6.
Okay. Jaleel McLaughlin, RB 49, 144th overall. Yeah. There are some handcuffs that are just handcuffs. There are some handcuffs that are going to play a lot. And Jaleel McLaughlin is one of them. Play enough.
So, and I loved Jaleel McLaughlin last year, and I like him at that cost. He's a good value. I think it's interesting to question whether, like, does he have the upside that he's ever going to become the lead back if somebody gets hurt? Like Javonte Williams wins the lottery and is not on the team anymore. Does Jaleel McLaughlin ever see more than 10 to 12 touches a game?
I would say if that's your projection for him with Javonte, which I assume it is.
Yeah.
He probably goes to 12 to 15.
Yeah.
And
He's
like
not
him
gonna
a little
be
bit more.
Right.
And
No,
then, like, I'm viewing him as sort of like a hybrid of Kamara and Sproles, of what Sean Payton has used that type of player for.
Okay. And then Khalil Herbert, RB 54.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to pick him up in one of our leagues that had free agency. Jamie picked him up first, higher priority. I love the wide receiver range in round 5 to round 6. Diggs, Rice, Cooper, Higgins, Flowers, Pickens, McLaurin, Dell, Ridley, Kirk, Godwin. Those are wide receivers 24 to 34. Marquise Brown is wide receiver 47. I just think it's an overreaction for a guy who might miss a few games. I don't know. Wide receiver 47 is great value for him. Josh Palmer, wide receiver 53. Love that one.
Yep.
And then I'm still going to say Freiermuth. I know he was a sleeper for you guys. We got a little discouraged with his usage in the preseason, but I still think he's tight end 15 in this recent ADP on NFC. I still think he's got the best chance of a lot of these backup tight ends, backup fantasy tight ends, to be second on his team in targets, or earn more playing time and put a bad preseason behind him, because we don't want to overreact.
So we get no trade of Brandon Ayuk. And the shares that you've been getting the last couple of weeks of George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth are going to probably pay off very well, because they've dropped.
Yes. And absolutely, this is contingent on no Brandon Ayuk trade. Okay. I hope you guys agree with my takes. We will get the worst values after this break. And then we have Marty coming on very shortly to talk injuries. Worst values right now. We'll be right back.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Heath, let's start with those older running backs changing teams and going very early in drafts as your two of your worst values.
Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry are currently both being drafted higher overall than they finished per game at their position last year.
Wow. 6th overall for Barkley. Henry's 17th overall. And Barkley's RB5 in NFC ADP over the last 3 days. Henry's RB7. I was surprised by that.
So yeah, I've got busts coming out today, and I write a little bit more and cite Ryan Heath's article and tweet stream about running backs changing teams as veterans. As a rule, like the drop off is greater the longer you've been in the league. So the drop off for older running backs changing teams worse than maybe like a 25-year-old changing teams. So I'm out on those guys at that cost. I'm out on Davante Adams because of my rule of older pass catcher starts to show you a drop off in production, believe him. And then we already mentioned Jordan Love at 60th.
Does Ryan provide examples of who those running backs are that have changed teams?
It was all of them. So on a percentage basis. So it's not just now. I think it was only running backs who in their career had at least one top 12 finish. So it's not like guys who were never good on their first team.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like they're going to better situations. That's why people are interested in them, obviously.
Well, and that's the other thing is, and Jacob Gibbs had tweeted this out yesterday or the day before, like Philadelphia running backs in the Jalen Hurts era have not just been low-end RB2s at best, but if you look at their expected fantasy points, so what the running back opportunity has been for running backs in Philadelphia, it's been 22nd to 24th at best. That it has not been a situation that has been good for running backs. Now, I think people think it's a better situation because Saquon Barkley's going there. They're going to give the ball to him a lot more than they ever have to anyone else. But historically, it hasn't been a good situation.
But like Saquon Barkley last year was RB9 per game. The year before, I think he was RB5 or 6 per game. And he had every single carry for the Giants inside the 5-yard line. And the Eagles still, their running backs, just take away the Jalen Hurts carries, their running backs had significantly more, like 9 or 10 more carries inside the 5-yard line than the Giants did last year. And DeAndre Swift got down to the 1-yard line 5 or 6 times, was followed by a Jalen Hurts tush-push touchdown every single time. You had a double-digit touchdown season from Miles Sanders 2 years ago. You had a 40-catch season or on pace for 40-catch season from DeAndre Swift. If you get 40 catches and 10 touchdowns from Saquon Barkley, I still don't think he's going to be a first-round player. But I do think that's second-round caliber.
I mean, he had 41 catches and 10 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, but you got to hope that he averages more than 3.9 yards per carry running behind a much better offensive line on a much better team.
And he was RB9, you said?
9 per game, yeah. You know, but the efficiency has to spike. It has to. If he averages 3.9 yards per carry, he's not going to have that good of a year. But I'm not saying it has to like it will. I'm saying it has to for him to be really good. And
well, it should.
It should, but people do question how good he is because he really hasn't been that good since his rookie year. But I think you go look at his big plays last year and you see an explosive player. Just can he do that without all of the negative plays? That's my question for Barkley. Is he going to be looking for the home run all the time, or is he going to be more of a consistent rusher?
Well, you have to hope that the negative plays aren't as prominent because there's better blocking and a better, concern for everything else on the defense there.
All right. We apologize to Marty, who is waiting backstage. We'll get to him in just a minute. Jamie, you want to give any of your worst ADPs?
I can just react to yours.
Okay. Yeah, I have one guy based on NFC ADP. Well, I was going to say Henry and Barkley, but based on NFC ADP over the last 3 days, which is 30 drafts, Davante Achane, 23rd overall. And again, running backs fall in this format, and he's 23rd overall. He also went 25th overall in my FFT Open League, not to me. Davante Achane, RB10, ahead of Pacheco, Rashad White, Josh Jacobs, James Cook. Oh, man, it's fun. It's risky, but it's fun, but it's risky. Davante Achane too early for me.
If he hits, he's going to be a megastar.
I know, but what is hitting for him?
Raheem Mostert probably getting hurt and him getting the opportunity to score a good chunk of those 18 touchdowns.
And him holding up to the workload.
I go back to the end of last year when he was playing and Raheem Mostert was hurt, and I feel like it was either a pretty even split or Jeff Wilson actually out-carried Davante Achane. So do they feel comfortable putting him in that role? Same question about Jaleel McLaughlin on a higher level. Do they feel comfortable making Achane a 15-plus touch guy?
And he bulked up, but he's still under 190 pounds, right?
I don't know.
He was like 183 last year.
Maybe Marty knows. Let's bring in Marty.
Morning, everybody.
How much does Davante Achane weigh?
I think more with Heat is he needs to gain some weight.
There you go. There you go. How are you, Marty? How
I'm
you
doing
feel?
well, everybody. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Hey.
Great to have Marty here. We had him here over the offseason. We got some terrific advice. We're going to ask him. All right, we got some high-end players to ask you about. Christian McCaffrey, it's August 22nd. He's still out with a calf injury. Should we be worried? He's the first pick in most fantasy drafts. What do you think about Christian McCaffrey?
Well, how about we have I'll just talk everybody through a deep breathing exercise. It seems like every fantasy manager is holding their breath on Christian McCaffrey, right? Including my sons this morning, Jack and Austin. Dad, what am I doing with Christian McCaffrey? I'm like, you should watch FFT like everyone else.
That's right. We got 2 new viewers. Love it.
Exactly. Here we go. Ratings are through the roof this morning.
Yes.
So listen, he got hurt early in the preseason, hurt his calf. Now, here's what the situation. It is a minor tear. Anytime we say the word strain, it means a stretch and or tear of the muscle. The tear is actually minor. But what happens with particularly decelerators like the hamstring and the calf is that the tear is small, but the healthy tissue around the tear goes into spasm to protect that tear and kind of makes the injury field or injury size much larger. So the 49ers are doing right by him by keeping him out, being conservative. This can linger, be a long-term problem. He's trending in the right direction. And I believe with his experience, particularly last season, I expect him to be not only ready for season opener, but actually quite effective. All right, everyone, take a deep breath.
Yeah, I like that. And thank you for doubling our viewers, by the way, with your sons.
No, I watched 2 at 3.
Okay, 40%, whatever.
Marty, we got another first-round running back, or at least the former first-round running back that's dealing with an injury as well. And Jahmyr Gibbs has a hamstring injury. Dan Campbell says, excuse me, that he expects him to come back to practice either at the end of this week on Sunday or next week. It seems like there's a second injury that's happened to Gibbs because he had something that he was dealing with in the offseason as well. I don't know if it was actually reported as a hamstring, but hard to know how much that will linger. Soft tissue injuries scare me, especially if there's multiple of them. So where are you at on Jahmyr Gibbs right now?
Man, what a breakout season indeed that he had, huh? It is a hamstring tear, and once right away it's shut down. Very similar to the calf injury that McCaffrey's sustained, but with the hamstrings are decelerators. So if your quadriceps and your hip flexors accelerate the limb, the hamstrings decelerate. Let's call them the brakes. When you have that kind of lead speed, you need those brakes. Once again, there are 3 issues with hamstrings. First of all, the tears typically are small and in the center of a very large muscle. So this poor blood supply, which delays healing automatically. They're difficult to get because usually the depth is actually quite deep in the muscle, even with our hands and multiple modalities that we have a tendency to linger. And once again, because they're decelerators, there's always this imbalance between the accelerators and decelerators. So anything the medical staff and strength and conditioning staff can do to minimize that imbalance will help the player long-term. Most importantly, you need to be conservative with hamstring tears because if you don't deal with it in the short term, you're left with a very long-term problem. Remember last year, Justin Jefferson was out 7 weeks with a very similar hamstring tear, and the fantasy football community went bananas. So much so that Justin himself had to respond with a little bit of anger, like, guys, I'm injured. I can't play. Not my fault that I was your first-round draft pick. But that was a very smart move by the Vikings, and it paid off for them in the second half of the season.
Okay, Marty, another guy who was in the first round for us, now in round 2, Puka Nacua. Now, we had Sean McVay, who explained the injury and said it wasn't really that big of a deal. He's been pretty reliable when telling us whether injuries are a big deal or not. But in terms of explaining the injury, I still didn't really get it. So hopefully you can clarify that for us and tell us that Puka's going to be okay.
He dropped the second round? Really? Come on now. Let's keep him in the first round. Okay, so earlier, I think about 2 weeks ago in a combined practice with the Chargers, he landed really hard on his knee. Let me tell you what happened. So the knee, including other joints, have multiple areas of these small sacs of fluid called bursa sacs. And those sacs essentially have lubrication fluid in areas of high friction. So when he landed directly on his knee, he actually inflamed the burster so much that it actually burst. Some of you might have seen folks with a large sac in the fluid on the elbow. That's usually a burster sac. Now that sac burst, creating a significant amount of fluid in the knee joint. So that's really what it's dealing with. It's not a structural injury, no supporting ligaments, ACL, MCL, meniscus, none of that was involved. But it takes very little fluid, about 10 cc's, a small test tube size of fluid, to shut down the supporting muscles of that knee. That's why they've been so conservative. So yes, I believe he'll be ready for the season opener and it'd actually be quite effective. But I'll send out a question to you guys. You know, it seems like after every catch, right, Puka looks like a train wreck. I mean, a car wreck, the way he tackles. I'm worried about his longevity for sure.
Really? What do you guys think? So, but you're not worried about the knee. You're just worried about he's kind of smallish and gets roughed up all the time.
Correct. And the swelling is under control, managing well. It'll be up and down as the season starts, but no concerns there, both short-term and long-term. I think it'll be quite effective even as week one comes around, but no concerns there at all. Dodge the bullet for sure.
No, I think that the injury concerns are something that maybe we don't talk enough about. He had plenty of injury problems in college. So he's got a pretty extensive injury history, and he does take a lot of hits. So it's probably worth considering. But I'm glad to know that the knee's going to be okay.
Absolutely. I would keep him at round one for some of you guys who are thinking, have a late first round pick.
I'm sorry. I wanted to follow up on Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe it wasn't completely clear. It seemed like you had some more concern long-term for him. Is that accurate? Like, would you be down? You're saying keep Puka Nacua in round one. Nacua and Gibbs have both fallen a little bit. Yeah. What's your long-term concern for Gibbs?
Great question, Adam. So with Gibbs, I do expect him to miss week one on the season opener, and I would not be surprised if he misses week two, only because we gave him a 4 to 6 week window, right? But being only a second-year player and that elite speed that he has, they will be and have to be conservative, very similar to Justin Jefferson.
Okay. Marty, do you have similar concerns to Jaylen Warren, who also has a hamstring injury that he's dealing with as well?
I think anytime you have elite speed, you have to be a conservative side. Even a minor tear, automatically 4 weeks. But nowadays, we really understand the anatomy, the mechanism, how the hamstring functions in a real game situations. But so, yes, we're always looking for a first-time tear, let's say, without a history of hamstring tears. We're looking at 4 to 6 weeks minimum, but no long-term issues when they catch it in time.
So there's a couple of wide receivers that suffered preseason injuries, very different injuries. DeAndre Hopkins, knee injury. From what we see, he's expected to play in week one. Marquise Brown, shoulder injury. Don't know if he'll be ready for week one. These guys are falling in drafts. I just talked about Marquise Brown being wide receiver 47 over the last 3 days in NFC drafts. Do you think that when Hopkins and Brown are back, they will be themselves?
Well, we blinked, and DeAndre Hopkins is an 11-year veteran. I couldn't believe that. I was reading his bio. So he sustained a lateral collateral ligament injury, which is essentially the outside structure, the stabilizing ligament on the outside of the knee. Extremely elastic, heals beautifully, but because of his elite speed, and particularly that quick cutting action that he has, they had to be conservative. I had him at 4 to 6 weeks returning, and possibly would be ready for week two. But the news as of yesterday that he's trending in the right direction, and he might be actually ready for week one. Now, what does that mean? It's not a main stabilizing ligament. Pain is the number one concern. So if he's trending in the right direction, and after last season, I wouldn't be surprised if he's ready and be very effective for week one.
Marquise Brown, you feel like he'll be back to himself? I don't think he'll be back for week one. We'll play conservative there, but that shoulder injury that Tyreek Hill apparently had with the Chiefs several years ago, is this he'll be back to being himself injury? Yeah.
A long-term, no issues, but let's talk about the severity of this injury. So when he landed in that preseason game, the collarbone, it's called the sternum, which is the breastplate, right? And the clavicle, which is the collarbone. So it's when the collarbone dislocates from your breastbone. And in his case, when he landed, that collarbone dislocated and went backwards into the neck region.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah. Which made it a medical emergency, which was incredibly managed and stabilized by the Chiefs' medical staff. Now, under anesthesia in the ER, they're able to actually reduce it or put that collarbone back into this very small socket, right? And those ligaments around that area just have to heal about 4 to 6 weeks. Tyreek Hill had the same exact injury, right? And was back in 4 weeks. Well, 4 weeks minimum for those ligaments to heal. He basically dodged a bullet, a very serious injury, but zero long-term concerns there, and be very effective. But I would not be surprised if he's out for into week 2 of the season.
One guy who also looks like he might have dodged a bullet, Justin Herbert, at least returning to practice. Can you talk a little bit about his foot injury and whether we should be concerned?
Yeah. Well, he has a very common plantar fasciitis injury, which is inflammation of the arch of the foot. Essentially, back to show and tell, guys, right? So the plantar fascia is a very thick band of connective tissue that not only gives shock absorption to the foot, but also gives it stability. When it gets inflamed, you lose that elastic, you lose some of that shock absorption. And this is actually with his right foot, so it's that drop back. So he drops back to push offs. So imagine dropping back, and as you push off, it actually feels like you're stepping on gravel every single time. That's how painful this injury is. He was put in a walking boot. I think he was on for about 2.5 weeks, started to practice already. No long-term concerns at all. There's lots of different modifications they can do, not only with shock absorption in the cleat, in the turf, taping techniques, etc., but zero long-term concerns. So he'll be very effective, I believe, this season.
Marty, I have a question.
Please.
We have 2 very non-athletic people about to take part in an athletic event coming up for charity, as you can see here.
Adam and Dan's going to need this guy after the tennis match. Yes, thank you, Johnny, from the comments. Yes.
So
yes.
we may need to keep you on retainer, Marty, just in case we have these 2 non-athletes that are probably going to get hurt chasing around a tennis ball.
What's the event? Tell me about the event.
Oh, the event is me versus Dan Schneier, another FFT cast member, playing tennis. We were going to do it on Wednesday, but that's draft-a-thon day, so we're going to do it on Tuesday next week.
Okay.
Dan played, he was like number 1 on his high school tennis team, but more or less has not played in the last like 15 years. I played as a kid, but stopped when I was like 10 and played sporadically throughout the years, but I've been playing a ton for the last 2 months.
Oh.
So I am ready for this challenge. Dan is getting scared. I have chronic knee issues to begin with. So yeah, I haven't hurt myself yet, but I very well could in this. This is the most important athletic event of my life.
That's fantastic.
Not about it. There has never been a more important. Middle school basketball, we won a championship, but I was a backup. So most important athletic moment of my life.
Okay, here we go. I will bring my treatment table, be on the sideline ready for either one of you drops. I definitely got to see what Vegas is saying about this match. So got to take a look at those numbers.
What are the odds? What are the latest odds, Heath?
I think we had Dan at -250. I did want to ask though, kind of as a follow-up, like, does it help reduce Adam's risk of injury that he is the same size that he was when he stopped playing when he was 10?
Wow. You know what? It does. For every extra pound of weight we gain, right? It's an extra 3 pounds on all our joints. So good job, Adam. Staying.
Hey, look at that. All right. I do.
My joints are.
But here's a little bit of advice for our viewers out there. The key thing with high impact sports, right, is to engage those hip muscles before you play. They'll give you a lot more shock absorption, particularly if you're playing hard court in tennis. So take that elastic band, the elastic loops, put it around the ankles, and walk side to side and backwards and forwards to really engage those glute muscles, give you a lot of shock absorption. And very similar when we engage the glutes with that elastic band, it's very similar to hitting a heavy bat or swinging a heavy bat before we go up to the plate. It makes you just a little more lively, a little ready to go, and feel a little lighter and light on your feet.
That was great. Actually, I did have one more fantasy question.
Let's go.
The players that are holding out right now on August 22nd, Jahmyr Chase, Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb. Should we be concerned about them, or at what point should we be concerned about them, getting hurt by rushing into things?
I reported on Aaron Rodgers last week. The biggest concern is the data is clear. You don't play preseason, injury rates go up across every position. But we are talking about pros of athletes who are extremely fit and extreme level of conditioning. So the football IQ is there, even though they might be holdouts. I promise you, they are training at the elite levels on their own in their own facilities. So not concerned there. First couple of weeks, you're sure you got to get those game reps, get the timing right, but I have less concern with them. They're younger. I believe they're going to be okay and effective, but they'll get it done. You know, it always happens at the last minute. All this talk back and forth, they always get it done.
Hope so. All right, Marty, thank you so much. Please follow him on Twitter at MJSportsPT, at MJSportsPT. Marty Jaramillo, thanks for increasing our viewership, and have a great day and weekend.
You guys are the best. Good luck next week. I think I'll be watching.
I hopefully, it's only like an hour away from you, or maybe less. You can come watch anytime, man.
Hold on, let me get my betting app ready. Okay.
There you go. Bet MGM. All right, I will end the show right there. For Heath, for Jamie, for Marty, for our producer Thomas Schaefer, everybody go to tinyurl.com/draftathon 2024. Bid to be in that draftathon league with industry experts, and we will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.